Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon.
My name is Ifeanyi Nwadei. I want to talk on feasibility study today. We expect some learning outcome at the end of this. The learning outcome at the end of this training, participants should be able to examine these basic things, the basic assumptions in conducting feasibility studies, list necessary studies required for decision making, analyze the basic studies to be conducted, describe reports, presentation of the studies. The content of this study, we expect that we drew up the content with the mind that it gives a structure of what feasibility study looks like when one is about to report. When we look at the first content, we see introduction. Introduction will tell you about the things we are going to learn today. The executive summary is the first item in feasibility study. When you are making your report, you must give a brief summary of what is expected to be seen in the body of the report. There must be basic assumptions which you are going to make in making your studies and in also presenting your report. You're also going to see the background of the industry, where the company is already in existence. You are going to report about the progresses the company has made so far. Where the company is not in existence, you are going to see the background of the industry that are already in existence. We're also going to see production feasibility, market feasibility, technical feasibility, financial overview, management feasibility, economic impact of the project, environmental impact of the project, constraints, and the necessary recommendations. You see, as the name implies, feasibility study is a research. And because it's a research, even though many people don't look at it as a research, because somebody will just approach your office and will ask you to prepare a feasibility study with the mindset of paying 20,000 naira or 50,000 naira, as the case may be. Somebody who has such mindset to pay 50,000 naira is not expecting a study to be conducted. So feasibility study, business plan, and proposal writing appear to be the same from my own point of view. This is because it tells a story of possibility of providing goods or services in exchange for money to earn income. However, they target different categories of people. Feasibility study tends to show evidence to investor chances to earn income. Business plan is a documentation of how one intends to provide services, goods, using factors of production in organized form to earn profit, while proposal targets a financier who may be different from the investor. Feasibility study, as the name implies, is a fact-finding study. The findings from the study is presented in a report form that may take the shape to be discussed here. The study has to be concluded in the place where the business may be located. This is the ordinary thing to do for the situation reported on to be real. However, when you sit down in your office to do feasibility study, maybe writing a report, you are not expecting a real report to be written because you are not in the field. You didn't go to the field. So you cannot expect a real report to be written. But how many people would be willing to pay experts to conduct a real study? I could remember in 2013 how somebody came to my office, and in a discussion, he mentioned to me that he wants to start a bakery business. And I asked him, how much have you already? And he doesn't even have money. He's just a retired civil servant, and he wants to start a bakery business. He wants me to do a study. Somebody who has no money to even start what he wants to do, and he wants me to do a study for him to know whether the business is viable or not. It was later he told me that he wants to use the feasibility study to get a bank loan, 4 million naira loan. And I asked again, this 4 million naira loan that you want to take, you have not even finished paying your housing loan, which you took as a civil servant to build your house. And yet you want to take another loan. In fact, I just told him, you don't even know what you even want to do to yourself. But that is what he has in mind. His intention of feasibility study is that I will sit down in my office and write a report and give to him. And that is what most people expect. But how many people will be willing to pay, as I asked? Many people prefer that the expert sits in his cozy office. Imagine your operating environment in a distant place and report reality. Others just need a document to meet specific requirements, which may be explained or not. On the other hand, the professional wants to do the study for a fee, which the client may not afford, as I said earlier, from the story of the person that came to ask me to make a feasibility study for him. He wants the study, but does he have the money to pay? No, he's not willing to pay. I am willing to go and conduct the study for him, but he's not willing to pay just because he doesn't have the money, not just because he's not willing to pay. The client is willing to pay for imaginary report, which may be adapted from already existing format in the file. And that is the reality. Even some people that they say they want to start a business, they need government contract. They want audited account for 3 years as the requirement specifies. But ask the person, have you been in business before? He has never been in business, and yet he wants a report that shows that he has been in business for 3 years. So what is he wanting you to do? He wants you to prepare a document and give to him to enable him get a contract. And that is the kind of thing most people see in the field. However, one requires good knowledge of target investment sector to be able to produce cut to size report that is believable. If I am not familiar with bread making, for instance, I cannot sit down in my office and write a report, a feasibility study report, showing that bread making is a profitable business. I must be familiar in bread making first. And since most clients do not pay for the study, how can a professional, an expert, overcome the challenges? Because you're also out there to make money. You want to pay rent for your office. You want to fuel your car. You are not just going to sit down there and give everybody advice without writing a report. So what do? You have options. You can surf the net. Look at the internet. What are the documents available? What are the feasibility studies that are available? What is the particular environment that study was made? When you find such documents, then you adapt. You look at your own environment. You also ask questions. I could remember one of my clients asking me to do feasibility study for farm expansion. And I asked, this farm you want to expand, how do you want to expand it? So he sat down with me and we discussed extensively, to the extent that when I did, after I've prepared the document, he asked me, have I been a farmer before? I said, no. Why are you asking? He said, because the feasibility study shows that I'm an experienced farmer. You see, that is what reading of documents relating to the area you want to conduct feasibility study, imaginary feasibility study as the case may be, as our environment demands. It's not that it's the right thing to do, but that is what they are willing to pay for. And you want the money. You call it commercial pressure, okay. So you will get this knowledge from books and other relevant materials. Talking with those operating in the sector, you must talk with them. You must know the problem they are facing. You must know their challenges so that you will be able to adapt the report you want to make. Since the report is not made for your environment, since your client is not the target audience, so you must adapt in order to see, get the right this thing. And like I said, you can also invest in the sector. When you have invested in the sector, I'm very sure you will be able to see that, okay, these are the experiences I'm getting from doing this in reality. So you'll be able to, you can write visibility study on those areas you have invested in. For another client who needs the knowledge or who needs the report to prosecute whatever thing he wants to do. With the adequate knowledge of the sector, one can report using general structure. And it is that general structure that we are going to look at today. How can we make a general structure that will fit into what we want? And like I said before, when you have prepared your table of content, maybe the first page is the name of the organization who you are reporting for, and you have prepared your table of content, then the next thing to do is the executive summary, because this is most people that want to look at, assess the report of a visibility study. They don't have time to go through the 12 or 15 pages document. They want to see the summary. And that executive summary shows the detail of everything, all the studies that you have conducted, which, like we saw in our table of content, all those aspects of the visibility study you are going to conduct, which are also going to be all the aspects of visibility study you are going to report on. So the executive summary will be like this. Should contain information, history of the organization's operation in relation with economic environment or that of related businesses if the organization is yet in existence. Availability of raw material and labor. These are very important. Evidence that market for the product is presently undertapped. Availability of local technology and quality of labor. And we're also going to look at the quality of those technology which is available. Then the human being that are also going to operate those technology. Then we'll look at the expected income, level and adequacy of working capital, management and technical staff availability, and required improvement by training. Because the staff will be available, the university education is the general training, then you may have to narrow their training, to adapt their training, which they have already received in their respective institution or in a skill training center. You are going to adapt it to do the kind of production you want to do. For instance, employ a food scientist or somebody who just went through a baking school to come and make bread for you. I'm very sure some of them may not even be able to make good bread for you. But when you bring them, you also have your special thing you want to do. So there's training need for whoever is going to join the organization. Then the economic impact of the company's operation on the local community. That also is very important. It's part of the study you are also going to do. So it will going to present itself in an executive summary. You will look at the constraints and how they will be surmounted. It's part of the study you are going to do, and you're also going to summarize it in the executive summary. Then you also make your recommendation or advice to invest or expand. You also advise whether to borrow to invest or not to borrow to invest. These are the things that you are going to, and they must show in the visibility study. And for you to undertake the study, like as we said at the beginning, there must be basic assumptions. These basic assumptions are, you try to create an environment that is stable. You know that our environment is not stable, but you must make a stable environment to enable you to process your, to report your study. Because anything that, for instance, by this time last year, nobody had predicted that there will be this kind of economic situation we're experiencing in the country. So these are the assumptions. You are going to make assumptions that the economic situation is stable to enable you to do your report. If you conducted a feasibility study last year and there are no assumptions, that means it's adaptable to every economic situation. So when this kind of situation or pandemic comes, as we are experiencing, you are going to see a situation whereby people are going to point at your study. It failed in application. But once there are basic assumptions, that's what the person is going to look. There is need to develop this basic assumption that puts the environment on a static mode. This will come in form of policies and bases. Reports may be prepared with reference to these bases and policies. The bases and policies must be clearly stated in the report. They may be stated as follows. Like the ones I have put forward here. Cash payment is made for every transaction. You and I understand that we have credit sales. And the basis for this report is saying cash payment is made for all transactions. Your operating environment is expected to remain the same over a period of time. These are assumptions. You and I know that the operating environment cannot remain static. Projected revenue and cost are calculated on previous year basis, previous year's experience, or on operating environment. So it's very important. Then all monetary values are in Naira, so that whoever is taking it out of this environment will understand that the basis in which the report was prepared is in Naira. Your target audience is in Nigeria, not in Ghana, not in any other country. So let's look at the industry background, which is another study you must conduct. This study you are going to conduct, which actually should be the first study, because what we looked at before now are the basic assumptions in which you are going to evaluate this background of the organization or industry. An intending business has no history. Hence, one must study the history of similar businesses in the locality. So it's very important that if you are studying a business which is in existence, the implication is that the feasibility study you want to conduct is for expansion. So in that case, now you are going to look at the organization per se and also compare it with its level of operation with the industry. But where that is not available, it's a new organization. It means that you are going to do your study based on what you can see from the industry. And you're also going to look at what is the relationship or this existing business that my client intends to invest in. What is his relationship with the host community? Does it make product, or does it intend to make products that will be hostile to the community, thereby making the community not to accept the company in their area? Then, if there are health implications, you are going to look at it. Is it going to alienate the community? What will be your social responsibility? What has been the social responsibility of those who are already operating in this business? So you are going to look at all that and make your report based on your findings. Then we're also going to, in the background, there's another subtitle there, objective of the business. We understand that nobody goes into business without income in mind. You want to earn profit. You want to produce. You want goods and services in order to earn profit at the end of the day. So you must also state the objective of the business. The problem the business intends to solve using the product or services is an objective. If it is to reduce whatever problem that you have identified in the society, and that is the basic for introduction of a product. You must, it is part of your objective. However, profit is your primary objective. Then why other aspects or problem that the product will solve are secondary objectives. The economic value of to the host community, you will look at that. It's also part of your objective, because we do know that the investor is not the only stakeholder in his business. We have other stakeholders, and the operating environment or the community, the host community, are major stakeholders in whatever business you are doing. How the business fits into the national economic agenda, it should also be an objective. It's a very good objective for you to focus on. So you will look at all that and also report all that. Now, let us look at the current production and uses of the product. Now, existing production capacity of the industry, you look at that. Local market supply of product, you also look at that. Uses that the product will be put into, you look at that. Existing import supply of product, possibility of product export, you look at all that, because you are going to report on that. And it forms the background of your study. And that should be the chapter 1. This will give you all the introduction, so that once somebody looks at the company and its background, then you are hoping that something good is going to come out of the investment. Now, the next, after the background, you see there's no specific order in which order is not in a specific order, but actually it is very good that the background of the study should come first. Then the other aspect of the visibility, which we are going to conduct, like production visibility, market visibility, and other feasibility study you are going to conduct and report on. You can, whichever choice you want to arrange them. But in this slide now, in this discussion, we are going to look at it as the second thing to be done. So, and that's the way we are going to take it. That does not mean that that is the final order of these studies that you put down here are the only studies that could be conducted. It could be more, depending on what you want to target at the end of the day. So in production visibility, we want to look at production site. Now, you see why it is necessary for somebody to visit site, because you cannot stay in your office and know how the production site looks like. So production site, description of appropriate production site, you must describe it in the study, in your report, because you will have done the study yourself. Where there is existing site, state how accessible it is to the road network. Security arrangement for safety of man and material. These are the things that you must show in your feasibility study. You must conduct studies on them, and you will also look at, you also report on same. Power and fuel. Sources of electricity to power production equipment is very important. Alternative source of power supply to support continued production in the event of power interruption. You know, and this particular item I just mentioned, I remember somebody that came to my office sometime in 2013. I was very angry with government for not having a light, constant power supply. And he had been in production for so many years. What he came for was for business expansion. And he was really complaining. And I asked him, when you were talking, when you were to cite your business, was there power in the country? We were looking at it. If there was no steady power supply, when you were about to go into the business, and when you went into the business, there's no steady power supply. So why are you complaining now? He now looked at me. I said, yes, you undertook a study before you went. You know you wanted to invest, even though there's an interruption in power supply. So we must look at all that, so that because it has cost on whatever we want to produce. Then we're also going to evaluate the cost of electricity and impact on production. Is very important. So that when we are reporting, it will not be when the person, somebody who is not really familiar with the business, once he gets our report, he should be able to understand, okay, this is the real thing that I've been told already. And how do I mitigate all these things? Now, in production feasibility too, we are going to look at raw material. How are we going to source of your raw material to remain in business? Are you going to produce once and stop? Or you are going to produce in cycle? Because the raw material comes in seasons. So how are you going to keep a steady supply of your distance? So you must look at the source of raw material. Are they available? Are they accessible? Can they be easily gotten to enable your production not to be epileptic? Quality of available raw material is also very important, and alternative sources. We must look at that, you know. Now, you know that there's no way raw material and machines can operate themselves. There must be human being before production can occur. So you must look at labor availability, you know. So do you want skilled labor? Are they available? Do you want to site, let's say for instance, is it palm plantation you want to site? Then if it's palm plantation you want to site, now let me ask, are you willing to settle skilled labor to move them from town to the village where your palm plantation is, where your milling machine is? You must answer those questions. So the ability to move skilled labor from the city to the town, to the village where your plantation is located, just like Okomu Pamoye company. Okomu Pamoye is located in a remote area, in a vast expanse of land in Edo State, and they have all manners of qualified people working there because they are able to move quality, skilled raw material from wherever it is in the town to that location. So you must look at that. Availability of unskilled labor. There are people that are just like as I mentioned, there are people that are going to cut these palm fruit bunches. They are unskilled labor. They don't require university education to cut palm fruit bunches. So are they available? Are they easily available? Are you going to accommodate them? Or how do you want them to become? Are you going to provide transportation for them to enable them come from wherever they are? You must look at all that because it must be convenient for them to accept to work in the company that you want to establish. So you must look at that. Then evaluation of character and attitude of available labor. You see, this is very important, but very few people pay attention on that. You know, when many businesses are not able to try because the workers that are available don't have character. Look at the country, the situation in the country, you see a lot of fraudulent activities going on both in government and private sectors. Character is very important. See bank failure happening every day. And I could recall an incident of somebody who was asked to get a number of account holders into open an account before they could retain her in her job. And she just went around, used her money to open an account for anybody that can provide passport and this thing. And I asked, is this sustainable? How does it translate into the profit to the bank? But that is not her interest. Her interest is getting the job and get paid. So for such a person, do you think the person has character to grow so it's very important. So we must look at cost of attracting the right labor. You know, sometimes when I look at some of the CVs that some of the job requirements that I see in many places, you know, they say self-motivated, self-starter, work under extreme condition and all that. And you ask yourself, somebody who has all that quality, will he remain free? He would have started his own business. That is the way I look at it. Nobody that is a self-starter that is waiting to be employed by anybody because he would have started something. So we look at transportation. What is the road network leading to the site of production? Because it's very important for you to be able to evacuate your products and for you to bring in raw material. You know, are you going to manage the transportation yourself or you want to outsource it? It's very important. The road maintenance plan. Are you going to wait for government to maintain the roads? You must look at it. You must look at it. It's very important. It's also part of your cost. If there are so many roads leading to the place, so many organizations that use the road, or so many towns that use the road, which you are going to pass, the implication is that you are going to wait for government most of the time in order to do the road maintenance. But how does it affect your business? Are you going to put that into consideration? Because from what we see these days, very few organizations, very few organizations are able to do road. I mean, government contractors are able to do road that can last for 30 years. And that is supposed to be the normal road lifespan. But when they do one coating, they vanish and they keep the money. So you also look at it. How does that affect your business, or how is that going to affect your business when you are going to start? You will have to report on that. Now, the next one, let us look at market feasibility. Since we have seen production feasibility, the next feasibility you are going to look at is the market feasibility. Market feasibility is very, very important. When you make a production and you cannot sell, it's better you did not even go about making the production at all. So market feasibility is very, very important. And for you to know, for you to do market feasibility, there's something that you want to sell. What line of product do you want to go in? What is your major product? You must look at that. What is your major product? Let's say, for instance, somebody who has oil palm plantation. Most of the time, the major product is palm oil. But there are so many products that come from palm fruits. You have palm oil, you have palm kernel oil, you have the palm kernel shell, you have palm kernel cake. These are the products that come from this thing. Now, these are the on one side. Then the bunch that is exhausted, for instance, you can burn it into ash in order to generate potassium hydroxide, organic potassium hydroxide. Everything about palm is useful. They are good for one product or the other. But you know that once you identify your major product, you can decide not to process others. So if in production of palm, making a plantation of palm tree, that your major product is palm oil, there are some people whose major product in palm tree could be palm kernel oil. So you must look at that. Then others will become additional product. So these other additional products, they are going to boost your income, but they may not be your main reliance on the production. So most of the time, the major products will determine whether the production is going to continue or not. So you must look at that, because that is what you are going to look for the market for. Product quality and competitive advantage. What is the quality of your product? You must look at that. Are you going to produce what they have in the market or better than what they have in the market? If they say that palm oil, they add color, they add anti-freezing, anti-coagulation agent into it, so that it does not, when in a cold weather, it does not coagulate, it does not congeal. Is it different from what other people are producing? How healthy is that? So you must look at that. So that if your product, you are going to do a product, what that means is that you are going to increase your cost of your selling price. And that selling price, in the short run, you are not going to, you may not likely win. But in the long run, when people have come to know your product, you see that it has a competitive advantage over every other product in the market, because you have kept your quality, you have kept your standard, and everything is doing well. Now, when we now look at the target market, you will look at the researcher. What market is available for my product? What alternative market do I have? What is the current size of this market? Growth potentials of the market, estimated market penetration. If you're already in production, you want expansion, you look at your product, how has it penetrated the market? If you are not already in the business and the feasibility study is for a new business, you are going to look at the existing product. How have they penetrated the market? You look at all that. Who are the current competitors in the market? If it's products that have similar products, it's just like variety of names of biscuits. Or a biscuit is you cannot, you may prefer meat pie to biscuit or whichever. So since they are all snacks, they have you can choose one against the other. So you look at all that. Now, when you have identified your market, what marketing plan do you have? What marketing plan do you have? So what is existing in industry? What is existing practice? What do you see? If you are in bread production, for instance, are you going to buy balls as what you normally see? You see a bakery written on the balls, and it's moving bread from one point to the other, from one customer to the other. That is what is generally seen. But the alternative, can this visibility study look at the alternative of getting people who want to sell the bread, for instance? They own their vehicle, they buy from you, and they sell to the customer. You look at that. Which one will be better? And it's just like the B part of it says using intermediaries. So are you going to use these people to do your sales? They manage their buses and they manage their transportation while you're engaged in production. I don't want to call them wholesalers because they buy according to the quantity they're able to sell. The one they are not able to pick for the day, you mop up using whatever means of selling you still have. So you can have a mixture. Then when you are selling directly to the customer, that is the C part of it, you can sell directly to the customer. And you can also look at, okay, let me do a combination of all this and be able to get my product to as many consumers as possible I can get to. Now, how do you do your product pricing? Because the price is very important. There are so many products, like bread product, as we say. Bread products, they have sizes. So if you want to, if because your quality is higher and your price is also going to be higher, you are going to prove to the people that actually your quality is higher. So how do you want to do that? So market price or similar products, you will look at it and make a choice. Are you going to produce the same quality as I said before? Or are you going to produce a higher quality and increase the price a little? What is your discount policy? What is your price control strategy? Are you going to determine the cost your product is going to be sold to the consumer so that the price everywhere, irrespective of cost of transportation, will be the same? Or are you going to allow the market forces to shape whatever price your product is going to be sold to the consumer? So you look at all that. Now let's look at credit management. What credit management is workable for you? Determine workable credit sale policy. How do you recover your debt is very important. It's very, very important. How do you recover your debt? So tolerance level for bad debt. When you allow bad debt, there is this possibility that you may be in problem. I remember somebody who was asking my advice on a credit sale, and I said, I don't give credit sales. And he said, how do we, that when they were studying accountancy in the university, that they said that one must make provision for bad debt. I said, okay, how much of your profit are you going to make a provision for bad debt? You are just starting a business. Your profit margin is very low, and you have already started making provision for bad debt. So I say I encourage you very well to make provision for the bad debt. And it was not long. She had to fight with one of those who refused to pay. So let's all look at the technical feasibility. What technology is available here that the organization that one wants to invest in can utilize? in making the products that is intended. So we'll look at the existing technology. Is it sufficient? For instance, when you look at some of these bread making machine, when you get it fabricated here and plugged to light, you see that it is not current friendly. It consumes a lot of current. But if you look at those produced in China and other parts of the world, you see that with whatever size of generator, you can even power your machine. So you look at that. It is more expensive to import, but it is easier to maintain. So these are the things we must look at. Disruptive technology. We do know that every day technology is evolving. So if technology is evolving, your product, which are the tools which are bought to make your production, will be obsolete tomorrow. Somebody invests tomorrow in a more modern technology and produces cheaper than you are doing. Are you going to abandon what you have already invested in? So these are the part of the things you are going to look at. You are going to look at how often does technology change in that industry that one wants to invest in. So you look at that so that the person will be abreast, the person will be focused, so that when the time comes, it's not like the person is taking unaware. Now let us look at what is your current capacity or startup capacity. Current capacity for those who already, for business expansion, those who are already in a business already. Why startup capacity is for the person that they want to start. How do you want to start? Is it going to be capital intensive method of production? And what quantity? What is the size of your machine? Are you going to do full capacity, or you are going to do 50% capacity? You want to buy a big machine and do 25% capacity and increase as much? Do you have the money? Those are the things you are going to look at. Labor intensive method of production. Are you going to use more of manpower in doing your production? So you are also going to investigate all that and report on same. Ease of capacity adjustment. Just like this other person who is investing in a big machine, a machine that has a big capacity, and he wants to do 25 capacity production, 50 capacity, 75 capacity, and probably 100 capacity. So these are the things we are going to look at. So easy to adjust. Then what is the objective of capacity flexibility? So you are going to look at, is it to ensure that the right cost is incurred in production? What is the objective? Is it because you want to be able to meet big order when it suddenly comes? So you will look at that. Then do you have the desire to expand? You look at every business, every investor wants to grow. He wants to move from stage A to stage B. So the desire for expansion is all going to be looked at. But when you are looking at the desired expansion, which you want to attain at the beginning, while the feasibility study is going to be conducted, it could be overwhelming, because you might be looking at buying 5 acres of land in order to set up a factory, let's just say furniture producing factory. And at the end of the day, you are not able, because you are thinking of expansion, at the end of the day, you are not able to afford the money. You must start somewhere. Along the line, you'll be able to think of how to generate funds for the expansion, especially when your production is demand propelled. Now, let us look at your desired capacity, because expansion and capacity, they also have a way they rub off on each other. So your desired capacity is very important, so that what quantity of product do you want to put in the market every day? It's just like every day they talk about barrels of oil that is produced, reducing your quota production and all that. So you will look at your capacity. If the market demand increases, can you produce more? So you look at all that. It's very important. So let's look at the financial overview. This one is very easy for an accountant. It is a projected return on investment, fund available for investment, and sources of this thing, projected cash flow. These are very important because if an investor wants to know how long will it take me to recoup my investment, how long will it take me to recoup my investment? It's very important. Then the available fund, is it my savings or do I have to borrow in order to invest? So you look at that. So if there are other sources of fund apart from your savings and borrowing from, borrowing is borrowing, whether you are borrowing from your mother, from your sister, from your brother, from your father, or whoever you want to borrow from. It's a source of fund for your investment, a fund for your investment. So you look at it. So how are you going to, how do you want to repay? Because that is in the what your projected cash flow wants to show. The person that wants to give you the money as loan, you want to see. Recently, you see the Minister of Transport talking about a loan repayment, a Chinese loan repayment and all that. People want to know how you want to repay. It's not just enough to just give anybody money, but people want to know, how do you want to repay? So let us look at, when you have done that, you look at management feasibility. We say staff and management in organization. You see, the management is at the higher, the administrative part of it. They do the thinking, they do the planning, they do all these things. So, and those that execute those instructions, you look at what is the relationship, what relationship should they have? It must be a structure, a seamless structure that can be coordinated by anybody at the end of the day. So we look at organizational structure. How do you want the organizational structure to be? We have different models on the organizational structure, whichever one you want to choose, in reporting your visibility study. Then in the organizational structure, what manpower requirement do you have in order to fill all that? So you look at the character and attitude and all that. Then how do we, suppose you decide that you want to employ only honest people. Anyway, I've never seen in recent time any advertisement saying we want an accountant, the prominent quality or the salient quality that you desire is integrity. They don't make such advertisement. We want someone that is humble. Instead, they are looking at qualification, and people want to be paid by the qualification they have, even though they have no character, even though they don't have the required skill to do the job. So that is very important in reporting our management feasibility. Let us look at what is the economic impact of the project. It's also very, very important, the economic impact of the project. Now, the economic impact of every project, first and foremost, you that did the investment, you are going to earn income. What that means is that you have created job for yourself and source of income for yourself. So you're also going to consider that. Now, the people that you are going to employ, it also has economic impact on them because they are going to be paid salary, and that becomes a source of livelihood for them. So they are also partners in the business. The economic activity resulting from the location of company, like trade. When your company is sited in a place, there might be need for the local people to sell sweets and one other things to your worker. That will boost the economy because there's increase in number of people that come to the area. So they will also make money for their families and those that they support. Then the support services to the company and staff. Do you use hotel, to lodge your staff when they come to work, or do they have eatery? Do they have things that they need to, So these services, if you are not providing them for your staff using contractors, you might allow them to patronize the community, the one that are provided by the community. Then social services that result in economic benefits to the host community. So supposing that they have a club It's a social service. And your staff like to attend club. That will boost the social environment of the community. So all this is going to enhance the livelihood in such community. You're also going to look at that because it has economic impact on the community and the project and the nation at large. Now let's look at environmental impact of citing your organization wherever you want to cite it. Now determine the impact of locating the business on the environment. Let's say somebody that produces bread. You know, most of the time we don't even look at how do we dispose the bread wrapper. People don't hardly think about that. Somebody who buys your bread, for instance, is he going to throw it? Because it's a cost. When you throw it in the dustbin, then are you going to pay somebody who is going to dispose it off? Or are you going to, now the consumer? You have done the production. The consumer have bought the product. And the consumer, when the consumer throws the cellophane off the street, is going to litter the street. It's going to block the drainages. It's either the consumer undertakes to pack the refuse, or the government undertakes to pack the refuse, or you record the refuse to your company. And what are you going to do with it? So you also look at that. So determine the consumption impact of product on the environment. Now for products like laptops and other things that are not biodegradable. Now, after you are through with the consumption of the product, so what is the impact on the environment? Does the producer think about the impact of the remnants on the environment? Do you, who dispose such in your refuse bin, waiting for the waste collector to come and pick and dump in a public refuse dump? Are you looking at the impact on the environment? Are you assessing the remedies to this environmental impact? The consumer may not think about assessing the remedies. It is the investor who should put all that into consideration. So the cost of collection, if you are going to record, you look at it. How do you intend to mitigate the impact on the environment? So you are going to assess all that and report on them. Government policy on protecting the environment and company policy on protecting the environment. You look at all that, because if government doesn't have policy and you do not think that your business or the business that the person you are doing the feasibility study on wants to conduct has impact on the environment, you didn't look at all that. It's not going to look at the cost associated, but it's very important that you recognize it as the expert. You recognize it so that whoever, the investor, will understand, okay, this has an impact on my production. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to keep the environment clean, you know, and that will help the system to continue to grow. Now, let's all look at the constraints. The constraints. You see, moving from class 1 to class 2, for instance, you must pass an exam. And passing the exam means that you are going to read. First and foremost, you attend classes. After attending classes, you are going to study what you are taught, then memorize them, and come and reproduce them in an exam hall. If you have inability to reproduce what you were taught, it's a constraint. So in every stage in life, there must be a constraint. We are all chartered accountants, and we know how difficult it is for us to pass the exam. You know, sometimes you want to study, maybe if you are married and your children are shouting, and how do you mitigate all that? So those are the constraints that you're going to see. No, facilities, this can never be enough, since one may not have all the facilities required for production. So if you expect that you want to produce bread and you need a 4 million naira loan from government, like I will always say, that is already a constraint in itself, because first and foremost, you may not have all the basic things in order to produce bread, but there are most basic things like oven, you know. So you look at those basic things that enable you to produce whatever quantity of this thing. Then we look at the other side of it, which will enable us to produce this. How do you overcome such constraints of getting this minimum requirement? So we look at that. The disruptive technology is also a constraint because frequency in changes in technology makes existing technology obsolete. Making the existing technology obsolete is not the constraint in itself, but that the other people who have a better technology are producing cheaper. For you, it's a constraint for you because you cannot, your cost of production is a bit higher than what they are seeing. Now, finance, like most people will usually say, most investors think that finance is not always available in the right amount. They are right. Otherwise, the billionaires won't be borrowing from the bank to make additional investment. So finance is a constraint, and since it has alternative uses, but you must make do with what you have in order to be able to start. Power is a constraint. We talked about epileptic power supply in the country, and we also look at product produced elsewhere, coming at a cheaper price because they have steady power supply. So it will be trouble for you to begin to compete with these people that have a very cheap power supply. You that run generator 24/7, so it's a constraint. So we also report that as constraint. Then attitude. I know that people may not really look at attitude as just like as I said before. Attitude is a constraint. If we complain that our leaders are not doing well, what attitude do we bring to our job? So it's a constraint. You are in a state you are because your attitude is the major driver. So the attitude of worker may not be in convergence with that of the investor. So it's a constraint, and that must also be treated. There could be other constraints which you may notice when you are looking at your when you are doing your research. Whatever constraint that you notice while conducting your research, you're also going to look at it. And when you did not also conduct a real research, field work in getting this, before you do your report writing, you are going to, just like I said, you are going to read a lot of books. You are going to ask a lot of questions, at least those that are close by you that will not require you to make cost, since many people may not be willing to pay for the cost of doing feasibility studies. So since they require you to make up your do your report from your office and do your research from your office. So you must also look at it that the only way you can report is to make use of the limited resources they are willing to part with. So we now look at conclusions and recommendations. The conclusion should give unbiased summary report of findings. Where there are chances of business success, they should be stated. Negative factors that may hinder the business should be stated, and the mitigations should also be stated. Recommendations should include human role and other factors in making the business possible success or failure. Because you cannot just give all businesses positive recommendations. Some may also need to get say, okay, no, you cannot do this business. So that depends on your finding. But I don't know how palatable it will be to the ear of somebody that wants to invest, that the business may be a failure, when he has paid you some money to organize this thing. But it is better that somebody who has paid money, should get the right report so that it does not waste more money. We do know that investment is a sunk cost. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ifeanyi, Professor colleague Ifeanyi, for the concise presentation. And thank you also for making our time to come to attend to our invite. Now, I want us to receive some questions. So if you have questions, just unmute yourself and you ask the question. Alternatively, you can also type your question using the chat option. Someone asked a question earlier. Let me see if I have it here. So what is the feasibility study for starting a school business? That's one question. I don't know. That question came from Joel Oriobo. Say, sir, what is the feasibility study for starting a small business? That question is too broad.
School business.
Yes.
It's for school business, sir.
Okay, good. School business. Okay. So repeat your question yourself so that you can.
I'm trying to understand the feasibility study to be carried out in starting a school business, especially in the northern part of the country, especially in the northern part of Nigeria.
Okay. Okay. Stefan, you did yeah, Stefan, you did hear in there. Fine. Any other question, please? Fine. If you want to take the question, go ahead. But to my understanding, they have given us a general overview of how a standard feasibility study report will look like. I think I will try to see if we can get a sample along with the slide when we are sending out the slide, so that you match it ahead against what has been taught today. Another question here is from Rotimi Olarunaye. He said, can feasibility study be used in lieu of business plan? Any major difference between the two? Mr. Fine, are you there? Oh, I guess it's not there. Yeah, I think you're right. Someone said, Ifeanyi is not here in the person. Mr. Fine, can you hear me? Yeah, I think he's not hearing me. Okay, apparently, I think we've lost Ifeanyi in terms of audio. Let me see.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Ota. I don't think he can hear us. Probably you put a call across to him. I don't think he can hear us. Yeah.
Let me see.
Hello. Okay. I'm only hearing it from phone. Okay, if you can hear me, visibility study actually both proposal and business plan, they can take the same structure, but since you are reporting to a different audience, the reporting format will be directed to the audience you are reporting to or to the individual that requires the report. But you can use the same framework, the same structure as I stated here. That's why I think that there's no more difference. Consulting business, for instance, consulting business, for me, most of the visibility study which we conduct in this part of the area is mostly using sensory evaluation or sensory studies. What I mean by that is our 5 senses. You scan the environment, you know, so visibility study can be conducted for consulting business, you know, but when you are conducting visibility study for a consulting business, or on the other hand, the consulting business is conducting visibility study. So whichever way it goes, a consulting business can conduct a visibility study. It can also be conducted for consulting business. And why consulting business is in doing a visibility study for consulting business, for instance, you look at the location of the business. I don't know, I've not lived there so much in Lagos, but I know that if a consulting firm is located in the highbrow area of Lagos, I am very sure that you are going to meet the right audience. But if it's located in somewhere in a slum, say for instance, in a remote area of some areas in Lagos, I don't want to make any specific name. You see that your business may not stand the same chance with those ones that are located in Victoria Island or in Lekki. So you can conduct visibility study for a consulting business. Consulting business can also conduct a visibility study for other businesses. Yes, there are success factors to look into in a consulting business. The success factors you are going to look into is who are your target audience? Because of all apart from your skill, you are going to look at what is your market? Where will you find your market? What is your major product? So you are going to look at that. So if you conduct visibility study, it's just like, as I said, using sensory evaluation without doing any particular study, you still stand a chance of succeeding. If you're also going to write a report, you stand a chance of succeeding. Consulting business, yes, you may require visibility study for consulting business, written or unwritten. Conduct a study, visual or visiting the site. The report from the study may be written or unwritten. The step to be taking in conducting any feasibility study is similar with the structure which I mentioned in our this thing. If you look at the table of content, you are going to look at a whole number of things that are written down there. So I did a general this thing for all business, all manners of businesses, you know, and that's why I said that you can add to what we have more studies to be done. Then for a school, you are looking at it depends on your target, and your target will also depend on how close are you to the students that are going to attend your school. How close? Then if you are looking at people that can pay up to ₦1 million school fees, then you know where you are going to locate your school. If you are looking at people that will pay 20,000 naira, you know where you are going to locate your school, because it will not be profitable for you to get land in the area where other people who are locating a school to get school fees of ₦1 million naira. So that is very important for you to do. So you must conduct feasibility study for school to enable you know the capital you have, where you can locate your school, and the kind of students you are targeting is very important.
Okay. I think that's all for now. That's Mr. Ifeanyi. Thank you so much for making our time to attend to our invite. For me, I enjoyed the entire session, and I'm sure others also did. Then this program was brought to you by Page. Page is a professional accountant's group email, made up of ICAN members, qualified ICAN members. So we deserve to be bringing out trainings like this every week. And Ifeanyi Nwadei, the chairman of Ifeanyi Nwadei Foundation, is the anchor person today, the facilitator today. So thank you so much to everyone that made our time to attend. I'm going to share the slides together with other items across to everyone through their email. Thank you so much, and have a nice evening.